Ever since 2019, when we first got The Mandalorian Season 1, we have seen this slow transition from movies into TV shows and how the fan interest has grown more so to character development and having these multi-season shows that really explore all different angles of some of the characters like Dindjarin, Grogu, Ahsoka Tano, and more. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, there's one thing about Pedro Pascal that has been very controversial over the years. Now, we know that when Pedro talks, he always talks badly about the fans. Often, of course, more often than not, about the fandom and how it operates. Now, Pedro has been really promoting The Last of Us and The Mandalorian Season 3 and what's in store for both HBO and Disney Plus and exactly what's going on with his two upcoming massive shows. He went on to talk about more about the Star Wars fandom, his thoughts about the Star Wars fans in general, and let's just say it's really not the greatest input on how the fandom actually reacts to the Star Wars franchise, based on what Disney has done throughout the past couple of years. So we'll be going over in this in just a second. The one thing I just want to bring up real quick is that Pedro Pascal, by the way, is going to be coming on board of Mando 4 again. There's been a lot of back and forth between himself and Favreau and how he wanted more helmet, more face time, I should say, with the helmet off. And that has now finally been resolved, so they kind of came to an agreement. We will be talking about that a little bit later. However, that brings us to the main subject today and exactly what is going on with Pedro Pascal, the Star Wars fandom, and a whole lot more. So, with that being said, with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni getting ready to make big revelations in the Star Wars franchise, they are working on both Mando 3 and 4 at the same exact time. However, in a recent interview that actor Pedro Pascal got involved in, he went on to talk about the current state of the Star Wars fandom. He was questioned about the fans raising their voices and projecting criticism. Pedro stated the following: "I think the fans need to just shut it at this point, and should be thankful that they are getting anything right now. They have no right to speak up to the creators, judge them, and ridicule them for their work. These films and shows are not their property or creation. As an actor, it's always hard to be a part of a community that believes Disney did so wrong with the sequels and the latest Star Wars shows. Most people that dislike the sequels need to grow up and stop using words like Mary Sue and woke this and woke that. It's grown to be very childish in my point of view." Now, it doesn't stop there. Let me just pause here for a second. Now, Pedro is that type of guy when he talks about his projects. He always talks about the fandom and the state of the fandom, and I would not be too surprised if he's eventually going to do the same exact thing for future franchises that he actually gets involved in the future. Now, the thing about this that I really don't like is how he's telling fans to quote-unquote shut it, and how fans need to grow up, and that fans need to just be thankful for what they get. Now, listen, I understand that complaining is not always the answer, and a lot of fans had valid reasons why the sequel trilogy bothered them. Very valid reasons. And so when you have someone like Pedro Pascal telling fans to shut it and telling fans to grow up, it's really not the right thing to say, because these are valid reasons. A lot of fans did not like the fact of how, for example, Luke was killed off midway through the trilogy, how he was killed off, how Luke really was treated in general in the entirety of the movie, and then you got the Rise of Skywalker, right? What happened with the return of Palpatine, and how Rey was the one that destroyed Palpatine instead of a Skywalker at the minimum. It's just a little, over the top, is what I'm saying, of what Pedro Pascal is saying. And at the end of the day, it seems like that he does not like the fans that speak an opinion or have a very valid piece of criticism, or even if it's not valid, everyone's open to criticism. Everyone has a right for criticism, right? I mean, it's just how it is. And basically, he goes on to eventually kind of make it seem as if the fans don't have any right to actually criticize a piece of work That's what he's basically saying at this point, is that fans have no right to talk up to the creators or raise their voices or opinions to the creators above. So moving on, he goes on to say, fans are just afraid of powerful women, here we go again, and diversity is how I see it. I'm honored to be a part of The Mandalorian, but I think this series needs more of what I just said. We need more powerful women and diversity in these shows, and it's completely lacking to me. Jon and Dave can do whatever they want to do, but that's just my opinion, and if fans don't like it, they are just afraid of change. It's as simple as that. And in addition from what Pedro stated here behind the scenes, he also stepped down from the Skeleton Crew series, from appearing as a cameo as Dindjarin. This has caused conflict between himself and Kennedy. Now, I just want to pause here for a second. Now, the thing that bothers me the most about this is how he goes on to say that the fans are just afraid of change. They're afraid of diversity, they're afraid of powerful women, stuff like that. And you know what? It's actually quite the opposite. None of us are afraid of that. It's how they utilize it is what we don't like. You know, if you look at the past, powerful female figures in pop culture, what's the first thing that pops into your mind, right? I think the first thing that pops into my mind, at least, is Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor, figures like that in pop culture. And it just works. You know why? Because it's balanced out. It's not forced. It's not some kind of agenda. It's not some kind of message. And that's kind of like what we got in a lot of the Disney projects out there, and even some of the Marvel projects, believe it or not. So Pedro Pascal, I think, really needs to kind of revise, you know, his thinking process of the fans and why they are just so fed up or very tired of what Disney has been doing. Now, thankfully, guys, Jon and Dave are changing the game. They are reshaping all of that. They are putting an end to this whole, forced agenda policy with Star Wars. They're trying to really end that. And it is coming to a halt with Mando Season 3, with the Ahsoka Tano series, stuff like that. And this is where it brings me to my point. You guys ever notice how Jon and Dave utilized a perfect female-oriented character, Ahsoka Tano, and it doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel out of place, or just agenda-driven? It works, because it's balanced, it's fit into the story. That's why Ahsoka Tano works. So, that's why I like Jon and Dave. They know what to do. They know what's an agenda-driven thing and what's not. And that's what I like so much about them. It's a very interesting point to bring up. Ahsoka Tano is probably the literal standing figure of an equal, balanced female character in the Star Wars universe, at least in the Star Wars TV shows, or even just the entire, brand itself. So, under Disney I'm talking about. Now, the thing about Jon and Dave, too, is that they want to satisfy fans. It's not about agendas or anything like that. So, anyways, I would really like to hear what each and every one of you guys have to say out there about Jon and Dave and Pedro, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.